Hello everyone, and welcome to a cold, windy and overcast Sabi Sands. We're here on Djuma and Arathusa private game reserves, and we're looking forward to the adventure this morning. I've only been out for a few minutes, everyone, and welcome to one of my tyres that I discovered, so I've been getting that fixed, and I've only just arrived at the Djuma waterhole. But there's a hive of bird life activity here. There's a lot of guinea fowl you can hear calling all around us, as well as Franklin. So there's a lot of bird song, which is a great way to start the morning. And it's also been a good opportunity for us just to stop and listen for a few moments to see if we can hear any audio of possibly lion or leopard or alarm calls from various animals that could help us to find them. Brent is on our northern boundary at the moment, and he's already on the trail of some lions, so we're allowing him some time to try and work out exactly where they've gone. And the plan for myself, Scott, and Bryan, who I'm teamed up on camera with today, is to head towards the southern boundary and then check the eastern boundary. So Brent and I have kind of split up, trying to work different areas, and Brent's interested in the Shimungwe Pride, or at least a part of the Shimungwe Pride that he located last night. And I'm going to check the eastern boundary for any sign of the Nkuhuma Pride. There's been a lot of lion movements and different activity with different coalitions, different prides moving into new areas where they haven't been seen in the past. So there's really exciting stuff going on in terms of lion dynamics, and hopefully a little bit more of that will occur on Djuma or Arathusa, so we can show it to you this morning. And I think we should carry on and see what else is happening out here. Now this is a live safari, so if it's your first time joining, it's important to know that you can send either Brent, the other presenter, or myself, Scott, questions at any stage, and not only questions, also your thoughts and comments. And to do that, you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And it's a great way for us to interact with one another and tailor-make the safari to your specific needs and interests. Obviously, because there are very many of you, it's not quite the same as having 4 or 5 or 6 guests on the back of the vehicle like a regular safari. But in my opinion, it's better because we've got more people's thoughts and opinions, and the more people on safari I find, the merrier. Now, because it is still overcast and we don't have much light, I've kept the vehicle lights on because it will help me to see any tracks on the road. If I was to turn it off now, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to see if anything's walked along this road. And as we drive along, we're going to be checking very carefully for any tracks. Now, we had a really interesting event occur last night while we were sitting around the campfire, at least those of us who are currently staying at Djuma. Some of the team is staying in the Manyeleti. But for the Djuma crew, we were sitting around the campfire, and all of a sudden we heard a guinea fowl start shrieking out, and feathers flapping, wings flapping in the tree, literally right above where our campfire is. And immediately I was fairly convinced that it must be a Varro's eagle owl that had flown into this jackalberry tree and plucked one of these poor guinea fowl from its sleeping perch. And the tree's very thick, but we did manage to shine a spotlight up in there, and we saw the Varro's eagle owl with the guinea fowl. We actually saw it finally killing it, because it did take the owl quite some time to put it out of its misery. But it was a really awesome thing to happen right above our campfire. After about 5 or 10 minutes, we left the owl in the tree to carry on trying to decide what it was going to do next. It had the trouble of not being able to fly out of this very wooded tree and well-leafed tree. But after about 5 or 10 minutes, we heard it eventually take off. Seconds after, we heard a loud thud on the ground. Doof! So we were fairly certain that the owl had dropped the guinea fowl, and we went and shone around the perimeter of the fence that surrounds our little house, and we saw the guinea fowl lying there in the grass. And shortly afterwards, the owl came back landed in the tree, and then we left. We didn't want to disturb it, so we left it. But when we came back this morning, neither the guinea fowl nor the owl was there, so I'm fairly certain the owl would have regrouped, probably got its breath back, and carried off its heavy cargo to share with its mates. And some of you may remember not so long ago, maybe a month or so ago, we did actually come across a pair of Varro's eagle owl, one of which had a guinea fowl in its talons, so obviously it's a prey item that they have kind of specialized in hunting in this area, or at least that's from the few events that we've seen where they have actually had a kill. But yesterday we were also talking about the Bateleur eagle and whether it was capable of catching vervet monkeys, and I said no, they weren't, but the martial eagle, crowned eagle, and Varro's eagle owl certainly are. So maybe that will be the next kill that we see. I've never actually seen a Varro's eagle owl with a vervet monkey in the flesh, but I have seen photographs of it. Now, I did give you all a little bit of a teaser letting you know that Brent was tracking some lion, and I'm sure you are all very, very interested to find out how exactly that tracking is going. So we're going to send you across to Brent and carry on with our missions. Enjoy.
Good morning and welcome to a very windy and chilly Djuma Private Game Reserve. My name is Brent. I'm going to be your guide. I've got Jeandré on camera with me, and I'm sure Scott's handled the rest of the introductions. So welcome on this live African safari. We have been tracking lions first thing this morning. The Shimungwe Pride, which we saw for the first time, or I saw for the first time, towards the end of the sunset safari last night. And unfortunately they have crossed out of our area. But we will be checking back in this area to see if they do come back. So we are live, and while we were tracking those lions, we managed to hear elephants trumpeting somewhere in this general area. So it sounded like quite a few, so we're going to see if we can find them, and then we'll continue on to see what else we can find. So apart from being live, we are also interactive, and you are able to ask us questions about what we're seeing in the African bush. And you can do that by emailing us on questions@wildearth.tv, or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. So even though it's cold and windy and the weather's a little bit miserable, that doesn't stop the animals being out there, and we're going to do our best to see what we can find. So let's get going and see if we can find these elephants, hopefully. You might notice my lights are still on, even though it is a little bit light, and that's because I'm using them to sort of throw a bit of light to see if I can see the shadows of any tracks on the road. But also, just a quick update from last night, the Shimungwe Pride. Apparently they also used to be known as the Castleton Pride, which means that both Scott and myself would have seen their predecessors at some point during our guiding careers in the Central Sabi Sands. So there's supposed to be 4 left. We only saw 3 last night. There are 3 sub-adults, so there is an adult female missing, and we're not sure where she is or what might have happened to her. But we have asked the other guides in the area, and it seems that they are almost a semi-nomadic pride at the moment, trying to avoid all the different prides around. So not the best luck for that pride at the moment. The Shimungwe Pride, which actually means Bateleur in Shangaan. So very interesting, and I will try to find out a little bit more about them when I see some of the other guides later on today for a touch rugby match. on the Shibungwe Pride, obviously our viewers have been doing some great research for us, and Lionheart, Stephanie and Mary have sent us quite a lot of information, and we are going to get to that, but thanks very much. It really does make a big difference to us that you guys have been watching for so long and keeping a tabs on a lot of the prides in the Sabi Sands, even the ones we don't see regularly. So again, a big thank you for that, and we will get to that information a little later. So we are looking for elephants, and it is quite a windy morning. There's a very cool breeze around, and it sounds like a breeding herd of elephants. So we have to be quite careful in this type of weather when approaching them. So if we do find them, what I might do is stop a little bit further away, judge their behavior, see if they're a very relaxed herd. And I don't think we're going to be doing too much off-roading after elephants in this weather. We don't want to upset them, and obviously we would like to watch them in their most natural state as possible. So always love spending time with elephants, but we must remember we have to be respectful of the animals we view, and we don't want to stress them out to put any unneeded or unwanted pressure on them. I would have guessed that the elephants were somewhere in this general vicinity. We're going to stop on this top of this edge here before we go down into the drainage line, and we're going to have a quick look across this opposite bank, see if we can spot them from a distance, or maybe even hear them again. There we go. There's the elephant. I've spotted one. You see him there, Jeandré?
Yeah, I might have to duck.
Disappearing into the thickets. It's going to be quite difficult to see, but I'm sure Jeandré will try. So to the right of screen. Oh, just moved past. Let me move back a little bit, and we might be able to get another visual. But I did spot an elephant on that opposite bank and heading down towards the road. So that's a good sign. Let me just try. Move back. Let's see whose eyes are sharp this sunrise. There we go. Okay, again straight. Moving through that same gap, there's another Ellie. There we go, you can see there. Oh, there's a grey bottom disappearing. And you can just see, very difficult to see, but there are a few Ellies in there. I can actually see a little baby just, but it's going to be very difficult to see. It's very grey light this morning, and so the bush is very grey and very similar coloured. We're just going to stand by here for another second, see if we can spot another one. Well, at least it seems my ears are working well this morning. But, oh, it's just moving. There we go, Jeandré, you spot that one there? You see it's back above the bush. There we go. You can see there the Ellie's moving through the bush. That almost looks right to the left of screen. There's an elephant walking through. You can just pick up the movement. And there's that one off to the right as well. So let's see if we can get a bit closer to them. It's quite nice now that I've managed to spot them from a bit of a distance. I have an idea, the general direction that the herd is moving, so we can place ourselves in a position where the elephants can come to us rather than us force ourselves into their space. And quite often with that, elephants are more relaxed when you do that. And with all animals, generally, a lot of how they react to the vehicles is how you drive and how you read their behavior. So it is very important to try and place yourself in a position so if the animals choose to come closer to you, they can, or if they choose to move away from you, they can also. And that will also help us a lot in ideating whether this herd is a relaxed herd and whether we will spend quite a bit of time with them, or we will just leave them and let them move along on their daily missions. I spotted one. One station with the dwarf, or I'm going to go shortcut. So they are moving in this general direction towards us. I did see some right on the edge of this little open area. So what I'm going to do is we'll stop here and just quickly assess their behavior. We can see them, and quite often you might not see us doing this, so I decided this morning we're going to show you what we do when we do see elephants, to make sure whether it's a nice relaxed herd that we can approach. And you can see she's definitely heard us and probably seen and smelt us with the wind direction, and her body language is very relaxed. She's continuing to feed, so I will try go a little bit closer. So if she had raised her head or sort of put her ears out, or maybe stiffened her whole body, it would mean she probably wasn't as relaxed with us approaching, and we would have probably stayed a little bit further away and watched them from a distance, and then reassessed once they came out into the open. We put the vehicles into low range. That keeps our revs down, which sometimes if you rev an engine very highly, it can be considered a threat, sort of a threatening display to an elephant. And I think we found one of my favorite little ellies now. We'll have a closer look, and I think it's Mr. Wrinkley Bottom, and doing his normal, there we go. Very playful young Ellie bull, quite often approaches the vehicles very closely, and he's got that very distinct skin pattern. So now I'm a lot more comfortable. We know this herd very well, and they are very, very relaxed around the vehicles and very playful. This guy often likes to jump onto his back legs and play the fool quite a lot. So there we go. At least he was listening. For some reason, he seems to do that quite often when we approach on the vehicles. He jumps onto his back legs. Very, very, very playful little guy. Unfortunately, he's a little bit behind the bush, but I'm sure they're going to move out into the open areas, and we will stay with these guys for a while. Oh, we've got a little friend with him. Okay, we're going to move around, and it looks like he's going to pop out into the open on the other side of this thorn bush. But generally there's elephants actually all around us now. And this is quite a large herd. Normally there's about 30. There we go, up to normal nonsense. Coming right up to the vehicle now. So we have spent quite a lot of time with this guy, and he seems to like playing with the cars. And big, strong, scary Ellie. And very, very unique behavior when we do see this little elephant. It's not often, there we go, that you see an elephant that jumps up onto his back legs often. And even though in an adult elephant a lot of this behavior would be considered quite aggressive, with this little guy he's just playing the fool. He's showing us that he's a big, tough elephant bull. but it's sort of taken away when he jumps up onto his back legs. It almost looks like he's putting on a show especially for us. And if he was actually distressed or whatnot, and actually I've spotted his mom as well. Oh, there we go, big jump. And you see his mom just passing in the background there. She's got those very straight, even tusks. One of the first times we really identified this little guy that I've sort of nicknamed Mr. Wrinkley Bottom was very close to here on the main access road into Jeandré, and he actually lay down flat on his side in front of the vehicle, so close we couldn't even catch him on camera. So I'm just going to move from this. The rest of the herd look like they're going to move out into this nice open area, and I'm sure he will join them. But it seems like every time we start the fight, it gets him in a playful mood. And they might be heading towards the little water hole at Gallagher shortcut for a drink, so it definitely is worth staying with them for a bit. Aubrey, there's also Campfire and Love on Gallagher shortcut. There we go. So this, and we hear a lot of those fork-tailed drongas. Oh, here comes a young bull. Hello, mister. Tusks in the bottom. I thought I saw a little bit of blood on his trunk there, like he'd probably been play fighting or sparring with another elephant. Nothing too serious, just a few spots of blood on his trunk. So we've got two little ones here, Mr. Wrinkley Bottom and a slightly younger calf who's close to us here. And just above the left ear, we'll look at both of them. Angie in Ohio was wondering if there was something wrong. It looks slightly discolored. I think it just could be a bit of mud, or that one's actually been standing under mom while she was feeding, I think, and got a whole bunch of vegetable matter on top of its head. And on the other little guy, Mr. Wrinkley Bottom, I can't see anything. Could be just some sand or dust. I don't see anything wrong with him. And more members of the herd coming through. As I said, it is a particularly big herd. I think I've counted probably 25 to 30 animals in this group before. And all that noise you just heard there is that young bull. He seems to be quite uppity, and he just got a little reprimand from one of the big females in the herd, and that's quite often why these young bulls are pushed out of the herds and end up on the peripheries, because they tend to get a little bit too boisterous. And there's still more coming behind us. Just going to move around onto the road. So very important in these elephant sightings to keep your engine revs very low, sort of non-threatening. And even when I'm speaking, I try to keep my voice nice, calm tone. Animals pick up on those type of things, so it's quite important to read their behavior and act accordingly. Little boy at the back. So this little elephant, Mr. Wrinkley Bottom, shows quite a lot of unique behavior. Not unusual to little boys, as this one's sort of a little bit younger and he starts shaking his head towards us. And Gloria is wondering, is this behavior not going to lead him to become a problem Ellie? Here he comes. Here he is there. I personally don't think so, Gloria. I think he's just got quite a bit of character and quite playful. So that's probably why he does that. I don't believe he will become a problem elephant. As long as we respect their boundaries and keep driving carefully and considerately around them. And if he does sometimes come too close, and those long-time viewers have watched, when an elephant does come too close to me, I'll often tap the door, raise my voice. Here, this guy, on the other hand, who's got a bit of blood on him, is a bit of an uppity youngster. So if he comes any closer than he is now, I might have a stern word. Yes, you. Yeah, it looks very sheepish. So now what happens in a lot of these situations is when an Ellie does that and comes right up to you like that, a lot of people get a fright and they immediately start the engine trying to reverse and revs and lots of noise, and that actually incites an elephant to chase you, even though, see, there we go, see what I mean, being uppity, pushing around the females. So he might get a little bit of a hiding shortly, or get reprimanded. But so if we had now started our car and reversed, and a lot of people who drive around the Kruger and whatnot often say they've been charged by an elephant, and often the case is that they've either taught or enticed the elephant to do that. If you sit still, keep calm, keep quiet, and understand the elephant behavior, you can avoid these charges that a lot of people have. They are slowly making their way towards that waterhole. This is a very thick section of bush that they're moving into. So I'm probably not going to try follow them through it. I'm probably going to try loop around. There are some Ellies still close to the road. There's a cow and calf up ahead of us. But we'll go have a look at them before trying to make our way around towards the waterhole, because I think that's where they're going. They might be going for an early morning drink. So there isn't a reason to ever be incredibly scared of elephants, but you should have a lot of respect for elephants. And obviously, if you are going on a self-drive safari around the Kruger or whatnot, I would recommend that you keep a little bit more distance than you see us do on the drives here. We've been doing this for a long time, and we've spent a lot of time with elephants. You see that female was just slightly upset with us. That's why I stopped the vehicle. Still talking in a nice calm voice, and you can see she relaxes immediately and starts feeding again. But as I said, if you're going on a safari yourself, driving around the Kruger, it is important. I would recommend just keeping a little bit more distance. Obviously, a lot of us who are working in the guiding industry and whatnot, we spend a lot of time with elephants, and over the years we've learned to read their behavior quite well. So if you are coming on a safari in Kruger, by all means you must enjoy the elephants, but I would recommend keeping a little bit of distance and remembering a lot of the stuff that Scott and James and Steph and myself say around the Ellies, and hopefully it'll help you on your trip through the Kruger. You can see she's completely calm now, focused on feeding. You can actually hear the crunching of that branch, and I always find it amazing how they turn those branches through and remove the bark or the cambium layer. In this case, it looks like she's more after the leaves and the smaller branches, so she'll take those in whole. And there's those drongas taking advantage of any little hoho that is disturbed by the elephants. I know the old viewers or long-time viewers will know what a hoho is. It is a South African colloquialism for bugs, all bugs. So just going to go forward a little bit. You can see I'm moving very, very, very slowly, keeping the engine revs very, very stable. So no non-threatening. If I had to drive fast past this elephant, it would probably react badly, either running away or chasing us. But nice, slow, and keep the engine revs very, very stable. And she just carries on feeding. See that little fork-tailed drongo just above her head, waiting for anything to take off. Some good balance there as the tree is shaken by the Ellie's trunk. And completely focused on looking around for insects. Okay, so this is sort of right at the end of the herd, and there's that drongo. We're going to move along and try get around to get to the waterhole before the elephants get there. And while we do that, we're going to cross back across to Scotty, who is tracking and searching Juma for some other form of animals for you. And hopefully we'll be back a little later with the Ellies at the waterhole.
Well, it sounds like you have found the cutest little elephant amongst that herd, and it really is a performer. So great to hear that you've been enjoying some interaction with that herd of Ellies. We stumbled upon some male leopard tracks and are now in the process of trying to fine-tune where exactly he has gone. It's definitely a male, it's a large track. And judging from the area that we located the track in, it could be either Mvula or Tingana, or possibly even one of the younger males, Quarantine or Kunyuma. So, exciting stuff, but we have now got our work cut out for us. He's been moving through quite a tricky area to track. There's a lot of riverbeds, and he veered off in Yala Road South, heading towards Central Road, which we've just checked very carefully now. And there's been no sign of him popping onto this road. which he should have. I mean, it's been his general movements of direction. So now we've established that he hasn't come there fairly safe or fairly accurately, and I'm fairly confident that he did not cross that road. So now we're going to go down and check Bataleur Road and basically encompass the block that he headed into. If we don't find any tracks coming out, well, then we can read into it in a couple of ways that he's still moving towards these roads, or he may have made a kill or is asleep in the block. So once we've done the full perimeter of the block that he's headed into, we will then probably have to go off for a short walk and investigate on foot to see if we can't find him in the block. This overcast weather is not making our lives any easier because it's much more difficult to see tracks in this flat light. So that's why we're creeping along quite slowly. An African civet walked down this road last night. It's an animal that I don't think I've managed to show you yet on safari, and it's a nocturnal animal quite similar to a raccoon, I guess, would be one way of describing it. It can be quite a useful track to use when trying to establish how fresh tracks of whatever you are tracking are, because they are nocturnal. If we see civet tracks on top of leopard tracks or lion tracks, it'll give us an idea that the civet was there after the lion or leopard, therefore indicating that the tracks of the lion or leopard are possibly a little bit older, from earlier in the evening. Well, Brent's plan was to reposition the vehicle, and that he has, so he's ready for you to join him back with that herd of elephants. We're going to stop here and listen for a few moments and see if we can't share any clues as to where the leopard could be. See you later.
Welcome back, everyone. It seems the Ellies were moving faster than me, because we got waylaid with that female on the edge of the road, but the majority of the herd have arrived at the little waterhole in front of Gallagher and are having a drink. There's that naughty bull. That same bull who approached quite closely to the front of the vehicle. He's got those two little blood spots on his nose, and probably from just having a tussle, a wrestle with some of the other young bulls, or even getting a bit of a reprimand from one of the adult females. And if we come off to the right here, Jeandré, here come some more Ellies. And you can see, I love it when they walk up to water. They almost get this different look on their face. They've got a water walk, is what I would call it. They sort of speed up. They're like, oh, yay, yay, yay. And especially if they've been out in a very dry area for quite a while, it's even more pronounced. They sort of jog up to the edge of the water. There we go. Oh, yay, water. It just arrived. We're just going to keep quiet for a minute or so and just listen to the movement of these elephants around us. amazing. You can hear the sound of their footsteps. You can hear the actually sucking the water up in their trunks. And you can even hear their flatulence. So before the eddies came to the water, we watched them feeding as they moved through the woodland. And Cecilia would like to know, which trees were they feeding on? Cecilia, I saw them feeding on quite a few different types of trees. There was 2 different types of acacias, and on some bush willows. And then one I didn't see properly, but it almost looked like an albizia, but it was a bit far and I didn't check it properly. That looks like that young, there we go, that's that young bull. Not sure what just happened. Something spooked them quite clearly, and they all ran off. That's what it was. It looked like December, who was collecting the ash from the fire pit in front of Gallagher Camp. They suddenly saw a person on foot close to them, and they got a bit of a fright and stormed off. So if we have a look, there's the Gallagher Lodge right in front of us, and I think collecting ash into a wheelbarrow, the noise and seeing a person there gave them a bit of fright, and that's why they moved off so quickly. But sorry, Cecilia, back to your question. So it's quite interesting with elephants that they change their diet depending on the time of the year. So during the summer months, about 80% of their diet's made up of grass, and 20% of trees and bark and bushes. And during the winter months, that is a complete inverse. Only about 20% is made up of grass, and 80% is made up of browse, so trees, bushes, bark, so roots. So it enables them to utilize 2 different food sources during different times of the year. See, they calmed down now. They realized that December wasn't actually a threat, so they've had their drink. And they're moving off into the bush to start feeding again. And elephants at this time of the year are quite mobile. They move quite big distances in feeding, just to keep those huge stomachs of theirs full. So there's quite a nice array of ages in this breeding herd, and Thelma from Michigan's wondering, what is the youngest elephant I've ever seen, and have I been lucky enough to ever witness a birth? Thelma, I have been very lucky. The youngest elephant I've seen is seconds old. I've seen elephants give birth 3 times. Strange enough, not once in South Africa, but all 3 times were in northern Botswana. So very, very lucky, and it is an unbelievable thing to see such a tiny elephant, sort of not really sure on his feet, can't really stand up, and it takes them a good 25 minutes before they're able to sort of move. And it's amazing how the herd, in the situations I saw, actually stayed around the females giving birth and waited till that youngster was able to walk and keep up with them before moving on. So the ellies are moving off. They're moving off into quite a thick area. There are no roads there, and we've had such a fantastic sighting of them that I'm not going to go try bash and crash and follow them into those thickets. We might catch up to them a little bit later when they move out towards a more open area, but I think they're going to spread out and start feeding through the woodland now, and hopefully we catch up with them a little bit later on the safari. So in the meantime, we're probably going to head off and see if we can find any tracks. So as we leave these ellies who've just finished their morning drink, Virginia and Kentucky was just wondering how long can an elephant go without water. If they have the choice, Virginia, they'll drink sometimes up to twice a day, but normally definitely once a day. But they can go a few days without water, and they are able to extract water where there isn't available from riverbeds by digging. And I have heard in the southern northern Kalahari, the southern Kalahari in Botswana, they get water from eating things called sama melons, which is a melon that's got a high water content, and even digging up tubers and bulbs that have water in them. But this is generally the elephant bulls that often wander much bigger distances than the cows. Elephant cows with youngsters will generally stay within an area where they have daily access to water. And when that water dries up, they will move to another area that has permanent water. So they can go a few days without water, but generally they will drink every day. Stations leaving that Cumberland Grove, now mobile south from Gallagher shortcut Marty towards Quanti. So as we leave that little waterhole in front of Gallagher Camp, Astralina was wondering, was that man-made? It was, Astralina, and it is pumped. You are quite correct. So some of the lodges, and in front of the lodges, quite often you will find a little waterhole that is pumped. There is another one. There are only two on Djuma, and the other one is just in front of Gallagher, Vuyatela Camp, and just above the dam. So when the Djuma Dam dries up, there will be another little water point close by for the animals. So still on the topic of waterholes, Leslie in California is wondering whether the waterholes are checked for safety, and is it okay for that standing water to be left there and the animals to drink? Leslie, the animals are definitely not as fussy as us when it comes to drinking, and they are able to deal with a lot of the bacteria and things that are in those waterholes, so that standing water will be completely fine. If you think about it, those animals will still drink out of some of the other water holes which are busy drying up, which are basically almost puddles of mud, and they have no problem drinking that. So these little water holes that are pumped are actually much cleaner water, and you will actually find with the elephants in particular, they will drink that very muddy water that is full of buffalo dung and urine and elephant dung and urine and all sorts of other things. But if they have a choice, they'll actually walk past sort of the the Djuma Dam camp, and they'll come round to these little clean water holes. So quite incredible. Elephants do prefer that clean water, but in a lot of places where they don't have that option, and in the really big open bush where there's only those muddy water holes, they will drink that with no problem. And even humans can drink out of those muddy cesspools if they have to. You can filter it. I've filtered it through a sock before when we had to do a very long walk and we were a bit short on water. We actually drank, which was probably almost 20% elephant urine, but it did get us through to the river where we got nice, clean, fresh water. So it is possible to drink it. It all depends on the individual though, but from an animal point of view, those are perfectly safe. it's always amazing watching those elephants drink. And Jan and Cecilia were wondering similar things about how much water, or how many gallons to be specific, can an elephant draw up its trunk, and how far up the trunk does the water go. Well, I'm not exactly sure how far up, but it will be quite far up, I would guess. And in terms of gallons, I know in liters it's 8 liters, and I think it's 4.5 liters to the gallon. So just under 2 gallons of water can fit in an elephant's trunk. And I'm quite sure, judging from the shape, it will probably go very high up in the nose to fit that amount of water in it. So I hope that helps Jan and Cecilia. And there's no such thing as a silly question, only a silly answer. So we noticed how those elephants got a big fright from poor December, who was just collecting the ash out of the fire pit, doing his job this morning. And there's a really good example that ex-Ranga has picked up on, how we've spoken about the bipedal figure of man, the human outline, and how animals can react negatively to it, and why they don't react so badly to the vehicle, because they don't see that. And there was a perfect example of that. It can be a bit different with elephants. It's strangely a funny one, and it all depends on how you approach them and that. And quite often when I approach elephants on foot, we tend to avoid trying to get too close to breeding herds, because they can get very protective of the youngsters. But with elephant bulls, there's sort of two different schools of thought about how you should approach things, and always possibly the best one is to watch an animal on foot without the animal knowing you're present. The second one, and that really generally works with elephant bulls and not much else, is that you can actually let them know before you get there by talking, and walk slowly and in that same calm voice, and then quite often with those Eddie bulls, they'll completely ignore you and carry on. And obviously that really only works in an area where these animals have been not persecuted by humans, and that's a wonderful thing about this area, that they aren't. So they are quite, Eddie bulls can be quite relaxed on foot with that human outline, but generally most animals will move away from Impala to lions during the day. The dominant diurnal predator is the human being, has been for a couple of 100,000 years, and animals will choose to move away and keep a safe distance from that. And the vehicle's only been around for about 100 years. They do not have that instinctive response, and if we drive carefully, considerately and respectfully around them, we are able to have incredible viewing with these animals, and they sort of accept the vehicle as sort of just this strange petrol smelling blob that is sometimes following them around, and generally ignore us. Scott? Scotty, what area are you working at the moment? Okay, copy. I'm on Gary Cut at the moment, heading towards Buffalo's Bar. Might check towards Buffalo's Warthog. Just checking in with Scotty, seeing where he is, what area he's working, making sure we don't focus too much on the same area, so we can give you the best possible chance at finding animals. So we're going to head up towards the northern boundary and then head east. Go have a look maybe around the Buffalo's Waterhole and then down to the eastern boundary. Hopefully we might find some signs of the Nkahuma pride. I know Karula was also seen crossing north yesterday, so maybe she might have come back south. So we're going to go check carefully for tracks around here, and fingers crossed that we might find something interesting. while we make our way into that area, we're going to cross across to Scotty so he can give you an update on those tracks he's been following, and we will be with you a little bit later in the show.
Welcome back, everyone, and I'm just on the radio with text, quick updates, and then I'll be with you. Mkonzo for this Madoda Ingwe head down into the drainage leading up towards Central and Yala Road North Tex. In general directions being north and east from Vulture's Nest Junction. Okay. Well, we are at the last position, and I'm fairly certain these leopard tracks veer off behind me and down this grassy or open sandy patch rather, and we just come back here to the last tracks in the hope that we may be able to further discover where or work out where he may have gone. Like I said, if he is in the middle of this block, it will be a tricky thing finding him, but at least we know he's in there at this stage. There is a small chance we may have missed his tracks crossing over any of the roads that we have checked. But what I may do is allow Texan to pass us. He's just behind us now and he can continue. But what I might actually suggest him to do is to get his tracker to jump off and walk from those last tracks. So let's just stop here and regroup. Morning, fan.
How are you?
Good, good. How are you doing? Morning, Tex. Good morning, everyone. Good. So the last Mkonzo I think went off at that little sodic patch there. I've done Central Battalion. I can't see anything coming out. So maybe he's built a house here or he's made a kill. I don't know. After you. Okay. Okay. Cool. Cheers, everyone. Good luck. Okay. So it's quite useful that we've got Texan around because he's got Fanwell on his vehicle, who's a tracker, which we don't have. So maybe with the keen eyes of Fanwell, they may have a little bit more luck finding these tracks with the leopard itself, and then they'll let us know. And because Brent knows the predicament I'm in, he's offered that we send you back to him, and that way I can do a little short walk into this block and try and work out. He could be lying right here. So I think we're going to do that and send you back to Brent quickly. He's also going to be searching for tracks of anything interesting while we go along. But the fact that we have looped the block, we don't find tracks coming out, means that we do need to get off on foot, and sadly you can't join in on that. So we're going to send you back to Brent, and hopefully when you come back to us we'll have a leopard in a tree with a kill. That's the plan.
Welcome back, everyone. It's going to give Scotty a good chance of finding you that leopard. So fingers crossed that he's on nice fresh tracks. So welcome back with us. We're about to pop down towards the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. So we'll have a look for tracks and see what else has been happening in that area. Maybe Bob the Bachelor's back. He hasn't been for a while, but you never know. That's the wonderful thing about the African bush. You never know what's around the next corner. elephants are probably one of the top things that people want to see on an African safari. And certain lodges in very dry parts of Africa often have the elephants coming up to the lodge swimming pools to drink. And Gilly in Wisconsin was wondering whether the lodges still use chemicals and whatnot in those pools, or do they skip this due to the elephants. Gilly, I'm not sure about all the lodges. I think some of them will not have chemicals, some will, but the elephant will be able to smell those and know whether it's going to be detrimental to them or not. So if the elephants are choosing to drink out of those pools, I'm quite sure that they're not doing anything bad to them, even if there's a little bit of chlorine or whatnot in the pool. And a lot of those very dry areas where you see that happening very often, it's often the water is quite salty, so they might even be naturally salty. There's a high saline content in the water, and I'm sure the elephants' robust stomachs will be able to deal with those type of things. So I don't think there's any detrimental effects to the ellies, but I'm not sure. But I do know some of the lodges sort of don't use a lot of chemicals in their pool and try a more natural system to accommodate their neighbors who like to come for a drink occasionally. So it all is quiet at Buffalo's Hook so far. We're just gonna stop and have a look and see if we can spot anything. Unfortunately, no bob. Crested Franklin's making a racket, full of the joy of life. Now we've got one answering the other. It's always good to just stop and listen while you're out in the bush. You never know what you might hear. And the lions might call, a leopard might call, a Franklin might spot a leopard and give an alarm call, and the same goes for all the other species out here. So not much happening, so we're going to keep on moving. So guys, I'm about to go through this little dip. Occasionally we do get some signal breakup in there, so just please just bear with me and I'll try and move through it as quickly as possible. Okay, we're through there, and we're going to continue on to one of my, I don't know why, it's like a good luck road for me. It seems to be a veritable highway of lion and leopard tracks that move down this road here. So I always sort of, between the two roads that leave from here, I definitely tend to lean towards Hippo Pools Road. I've had such luck with lion and leopard tracks on it and actually finding the animals. So fingers crossed we do find some tracks, or even better, an animal. With this cold, windy weather, we're not going to be seeing too many of the herbivore species out there. Impala and Impala and bushbuck. They tend to be a little bit more stationary on these cold, windy mornings, and in the thickets sometimes. But we will keep a lookout, and hopefully we do see some of the other members of the Djuma family, and we will be keeping a close lookout. And I'm sure they're all puffed up trying to keep warm. They don't have the advantage of, like we do, of adding layer after layer to beat off the cold. Sorry guys, there are some leopard tracks here. Unfortunately the light is very, very dark, and I know there was a leopard seen around this area late in last night. So I just want to get on the Game Drive channel for a second to find out whether this is the old tracks from yesterday or it is possibly a new set of tracks. The guys are just talking on the channel there quickly, so I'm just going to move off to try see. It's going to be very difficult to show you these tracks in this very grey light, and they're even quite difficult for us to spot. But I've got a feeling I can see some nocturnal animals tracks on top. I've got a sneaky suspicion that this could be the tracks of the leopard that was seen briefly at Buffalo's Hook last night. So it is going to be quite difficult to see. I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to see, but I just want to show you guys anyway. It's a very small track, a female track, and I think Karula was found in this area last night. I wasn't Arethusa, so I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty confident that these are not nice, fresh, new tracks. But actually, here comes Taxon behind me, so I can actually ask him. Morning, Tax. When they saw Karula last night, did she come from this side? Morning, Mfo. Morning, how's everyone doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
When they saw Karula last night, did she come from this side?
Yeah, she came.
Okay, so this is her tracks from last night. Okay. Thanks, Tax. So there we go. As I said, there was some nocturnal animals tracks over those tracks. So I wasn't sure whether this is where that leopard came from last night, and it turns out that's where it did come from. So we're not going to follow these. We're going to continue on to see what else we can find. Oh, there's a big stump behind me, and there's a car in front. Can you check for me there, Jeandré? There we go. So it looks like I'm not the only one who likes checking this road for tracks. So we've got a bit of a two-way street going at the moment. Hopefully we don't have anyone coming the other way. But we're just going to speed up a little bit. I'm just going to go chat to Tax quickly to see what his plan is so we can get off the same route. Tax, what's your plan from Impala? Okay, copy that. So I'll take Central. So guys, while we continue on and try to see what else we can find, I just heard Scotty's got back to the car so he can give you an update on those tracks he's been following, and we're going to continue on to see if we can find any other tracks.
Welcome. Had an enjoyable but unsuccessful little walk through the riverbed area to our right. His tracks veer off into this riverbed, and it was really fun track for as long as I managed to see the tracks for, but then after a while he shook me off the trail and I couldn't establish where he went. There are some people out there though that have the incredible ability to be able to follow tracks even through the hardest of terrain. I am not quite there yet, but we are still in the general area of where this leopard could be, so still feeling hopeful. And wouldn't it be nice to know who it is? Even if we don't find the leopard, if there was some way of just knowing which male it was, it would be wonderful if it was Kunuma or Quarantine, two young males that we haven't seen for quite some time. Well, a few of you, I believe, are saying that I'm not wearing the right cologne, and I guess that's true. I will use whatever I could to help find these leopard. Maybe if we snuggled up with some Impala, that would help. Now, because the general direction of movements has been in this direction, there is a chance that we've missed the tracks, like I said earlier, or he was simply moving through the block before we checked this road, and he may have crossed it subsequently. So I'm going to check very carefully in this area. Nothing clearly evident there. The great thing about being on foot as opposed to driving is obviously you can check places that you can't check as easily in the vehicle, but you also can listen. And while I was on foot, I sadly didn't hear anything of major help to us in tracking down this leopard, but it does increase your chances simply by stopping the vehicle and listening, or while you're on foot listening. Something else that I'd like to emphasize here is that even though our goal is to try and find this leopard, if we do see anything else of interest along the way, it's not that we would overlook it, but we do need to invest time and focus our energy on trying to find these harder to find animals. Otherwise we won't ever get to show them to you, and along the way, if we do see anything interesting, of course we will stop. The fact that Brent has been up around the Buffelshoek Warthog and is coming down in this direction also does help us, because again it is the general direction of movement that this leopard has been following. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it could be any one of 4 leopards in all likelihood whose tracks we are following. The most likely 2 would be Impala and Tingana, who we've seen most recently in this area, 2 big dominant males. And John is asking whether there's any updates on another dominant male who spends time further to our west on Arethusa and even west of there. And he's called the Anderson male. He's the youngest of the dominant leopards and appears to be pushing Tingana further into Mvula's territory, which is where we are now. But sadly, John, I don't have any updates on the Anderson male. We would have to get onto another radio frequency, and we are too far away for that frequency to work here. If we were across on Arethusa, there would be a chance of that working. and we could get any updates on that, but sadly where we are now we're just too far away. So not sure what he's up to, but certainly looking forward to our next encounter with him. The only one we have had was a very short one, just a couple of minutes, and then he crossed west out of Arethusa where we could no longer follow him. But he's a big male leopard, and he's got good genes. His father was also an extremely large male. Quite long leopards and athletic looking, not very short and stocky. I think he is possibly a little bit larger than Tingana and Mvula. And the fact that he's also a little bit younger will mean that they've got their work cut out for them in the future. There have been tracks of the Nkuhuma Pride, but it doesn't sound like they're heading into a favorable direction for us. But they were quite close, according to their tracks, to Cheetah Cutla on our eastern boundary. Andrew for Scott. Sorry, Andrew, could you help with the last updates on Kahuma and Kwanzo? Okay, copy, thanks. Well, sadly that radio update didn't make too much sense, so I'm not going to try and relay it to you. Affirmative, thanks very much, Andrew. Well, we've been talking a lot about leopards and lions this morning, but there's another predator that we have yet to chat about, and that's the hyena. And Cecilia would like to know if there's any updates on the hyena den. It was active this morning when Texan went there a little bit earlier. And they still are at the same den site that they've been using for the last couple of weeks. Cecilia is also interested to know how much longer do I think they'll use that den for. It's a hard one to answer. They haven't followed a set formula in terms of staying at either one of the two den sites that they most often use. But it wouldn't surprise me that if in the next week or two they would move back to their old den, as their current one will become ridden with parasites as well as excrements, and by moving out they'll allow Mother Nature to come in with her housekeepers of decomposers, and I guess the parasites will naturally move off in search of another place where they may find some more carriers who they can hop onto and feed on. But every kind of month to 6 weeks they tend to move. But it'll vary on the individual clan, and I guess the time of the year will also play a role in that. We've been very fortunate. If they were to move to another den, which we don't know the whereabouts of, it would be quite tricky to find out where exactly it was. So we're in a very fortunate position as it stands. I always wonder where the animals go on these cloudy, windy days, because they do appear to be less prominent than when the sun is out, but like I say, there's limited hiding places for them. So why we can't see them, I'm not too sure. Well, isn't it wonderful how viewers from around the world can help us out here on safari? And Joyce has just informed us that yesterday, Kunyuma, Mvula and Quarantine, 3 of the leopards we have chatted about this morning, were all seen on one game drive. So that was to the east of us and slightly south of us, but not too far away, and it wouldn't be a surprise if they were on our property now, 12 hours later. Wow, we found at least 2 birds off to our right, and I'm just going to turn the vehicle around for Bryan. Make it a bit easier for him. And with this new little camera that we're using on this vehicle, we've got great zoom, so we should be able to get you nice and close to these very cold Cape turtle doves. And you can tell by their body language that they are quite cold. They've got their feathers all ruffled up to create a larger thermal layering to insulate themselves in this cold weather. They're very, very pretty birds, the Cape turtle doves. And I guess almost similar to the Impala, because they're fairly numerous, we sometimes overlook them. They've also got one of the most distinctive calls in Africa. Which I don't think they're going to be singing out for us this morning. You can possibly also hear a go away bird in the distance. Some fork-tailed drongos. So the animals are slowly waking up, but taking their time about it. Brent for Scott. Brent for Scott. Where are you now? Okay, copy, very good. Okay, well, earlier you may have heard me saying that we're a little bit far away to be in radio comms with the Arathusa guides, but you'll be happy to know that Brent is heading into that general area in the hope that he can just get an update over the radio. We could be missing out on some action there, so I'm glad that he's decided to head across in that direction, just to make sure it's not going to be worth heading across. Finally, a mammal. Oh. Not the ideal spot to be viewing them in. It's very thick, but there are 3 Cape buffaloes, but there might be a little gap for Bryan to get some oxpeckers that are all huddling up on one individual. I think they're just using him for warmth now, not for food. They may have already done some feeding on him. What's nice is there's one young oxpecker there. He, you'll notice, does not have the bright red beak and yellow ring around its eye. Oh, and they're begging. They're begging from their parents, those slightly smaller ones. A little bit too old to be begging. But I guess like most youngsters, they'll keep trying their luck. Now, this camera does have a zoom function that leapfrogs you even closer to the animal, so don't be shocked or surprised if you get leapt forward a few inches. And that young chick would have been born in probably November or December last year, so it gives us a good idea of how long it takes for them to reach adult plumage. Probably another year or so, I'm guessing. I don't actually know the exact length of time it will take for an oxpecker to get its adult plumage, but we can assure you that it's certainly over a year, as they're approaching that 1 year mark now. It's actually incredible. Some of the birds, especially the bigger birds and birds of prey, can take anywhere from 5 to 8 years to get their adult colorations, which gives you an idea of how long that these birds can live for. Up to about 50 years would not be uncommon for the larger birds of prey. And everyone's on a go slow this morning. The birds, the buffalo. It's just us that are driving around frantically. Maybe we need to get in sync with the animals and go and find a bush to sleep under. I can hear a bateleur letting off its call in the distance. You may faintly be able to pick up some squawking. Sadly, it's a little bit too far from us, but interestingly, I'm fairly certain we know which bateleurs those are. There's a family that seems to be spending time on Leopard Road, which is in the direction of those calls. And I think when we were tracking down the Impala pride that same day that they managed to kill the Cape buffalo, just on the sunrise safari, the morning we found them, we did have quite a lot of bateleur in that area, and it's over there where that call's coming from. Really pretty birds. We saw one yesterday afternoon at the Djuma waterhole. Who knows, maybe we will be able to sneak you a visual of one of them, a long distance visual, so I'll keep looking back in that direction. It's interesting, on slower drives your mind starts to begin playing tricks on you, and you can see random little objects that you twist and contort into whatever you're hoping to find, and it causes you to often go back like we've done now and check random bushes that you think may be leopard or lion or anything that you're looking for. In this case, it was just a dark log that I saw that I thought needed double checking, possibly a kill dangling in a tree, but no luck. Bateleur still singing out. Okay, well, we're going to send you over to Brent quickly. He's got a beautiful antelope that's heading out of sight, so hopefully you'll get to see it.
Welcome back, guys. We've just found some of the other members of the extended family of Djuma and Arathusa. We've got a male kudu, a nice big guy. He's unfortunately moving into thickets. I'm hoping he's going to stop to feed. But at the moment, he's just moving parallel to us. Just going to sidle down the road to see if we can get a nice view of him. Unfortunately, it looks like he's about to disappear into this drainage line. Oh, he's stopping for a bit. A really nice, beautiful set of horns on him. And he's got an unlikely companion in a lone male Impala who's making his way towards him. So it's not uncommon to see groups of different animals together, but there's only seems to be one Impala here and one kudu. Maybe they're going for the safety in numbers approach. See if we can roll forward a slight bit. You can see they're actually quite close to each other now. Say when, Jeandré?
I can see the kudu, but not the Impala.
Maybe the Impala will move through. There we go. You can see the size difference between those two animals. In that brief little second they were both in shot together. Kudu being one of the largest antelopes we get in this area. And Impala, sort of small to medium. So even it looks like the kudu is grazing on the ground, it's probably not. He's probably feeding off a small bush that's very low to the ground. But we're going to move along. Can't really see very much. So we're actually on the boundary of Djuma and Arathusa at the moment. There's been no updates in Arathusa, so we're going to go check. Hopefully we're able to find some tracks of Shadow and Sindile. This seems to be the area they're spending a lot of time in at the moment, so fingers crossed, and hopefully we do manage to find some tracks. So I haven't heard any updates on the Birmingham boys yet. Maybe if I bump into someone, we can see if they've heard anything, whether they're still in the far northwest of these northwestern sections, or they've moved back east or south. It'll be very interesting to find out. I think more than likely they're still gorging themselves on that buffalo they managed to steal, and it'll be probably a day or so before they decide to start getting too mobile. I'm sure quite a few of you are wondering where Commander Bond is, or James is another one of the presenters, and Patricia has asked, when's James coming back? Well, hopefully he hasn't frozen to death in Siberia, even though it is their summer. I'm sure it's still quite chilly, and he should be back in a couple of days, so it'll be great to have him back. And to let everyone know, I'm going to be disappearing off for a couple of days as well. I'm going to visit some friends in Zambia for a little holiday. So a little bit of a change around coming in the next couple of days. Also, we have Jamie starting, which is really exciting to have a new presenter who can show you something different with her personality, and it's going to be very exciting. Our team is definitely getting stronger, and we're all looking forward to building and enjoying safaris with you over the next while, indefinitely, hopefully. Whoop, big bump. So now that we're speaking of James, I think we should possibly try a nearly impossible tree quiz. Got to keep the torch going while James has been away. I thought I had you guys yesterday with that splendid thorn or Acacia robusta. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for a nice tree, possibly one we haven't done before. So there's a pig. Let's see if we can get a view of that warthog. He is mobile at the moment. Probably just waking up and getting out of the burrow. Looks like he has stopped, so we're going to just try to get a view of him. I think he might run away. Looks like a male. And we'll have a quick look now. So how did I tell that warthog was a male in that quick view? Okay, apart from the obvious, when you can't see the back end of a warthog, how do you tell the difference between a male and female warthog? You can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. So I'm quite sure the warthog's probably just got moving. They normally like to get out of their burrows a little bit later in the day. Oh, looks like he's decided we're not too much of a threat. He's going to start feeding. So we're just going to stay here for a little bit. Hopefully he relaxes down, and then I'll try and move a little bit closer. But for now, I want him to get used to the sound of us being close to him, so we don't disturb him. And then maybe once he's got used to that, we can maybe move a little bit closer. He's still a little bit alert, lifting his head. He is listening to us. Not 100% relaxed. It is has been quite windy this morning, so he might still be a little bit nervous. I'll try creep a little bit closer. He might run, unfortunately. Just gonna move very slowly, and hopefully he doesn't run away. Find a gap for Jeandré through the bush. Unfortunately, he's behind some bushes, but we can see his rear end. He's walking away slowly through the bush. So, fortunately, we haven't disturbed him too much. He hasn't run off, he hasn't put his tail up, and which warthog quite do when they're often do when they're disturbed, and that is their little following mechanism. But we're not going to following him. Let him enjoy his morning, and hopefully for his sake he doesn't run into a leopard. Well done, George Ann and Rosie B. You guys are sharp this morning. It is 4 warts on the male, those big protrusions out the side of his face, and 2 on the female. Now we have something quite interesting here. And we have been spending quite a bit of time at the hyena den, and you'll notice often you don't find a lot of feces around the den. And hyenas are quite particular in their bathroom antics, and they'd use them as scent marking. And as you can see here, there's lots of white bubbles of dung everywhere. So this is a spotted hyena latrine. So apart from making sure they don't defecate around their dens, which can be a big problem, they also use it as a very important scent marking tool. So this one is quite a big one, and it's spread over both sides of the road. And it's spread from all the way over here, all the way over here, on both sides of the road, all the way to where the vehicle is. So quite a regular used latrine site. There's lots of different aged dung here. I'm not going to pick any of it up. You never know what type of nasties live in predator dung. But here you can see a very nice hyena latrine site. Also on the grass and bush stalks around here, they would use that anal gland and scent mark on that. Pasting is what it's called. Far nicer than saying anal gland. So they'll paste using that anal gland to mark their territory. So quite interesting. I know this is possibly within our den sites range, and there is another hyena clan that has a den to the southwest of us. So it'd be very interesting to know whether this is a clan boundary or not, and we'll only actually know that if we saw behavior from both clans in that area at that time. So very interesting, and there's always so much we can learn about the animals we see every day, and we probably know a fraction of what is actually going on, and we just try to guess most of the time. But the nice thing about that is you can learn something new every day, and you never know when you're going to learn or what you're going to see out here. With a lot of animals that live in permanent dens for different periods of the year, so the 2 main ones we could use from a carnivore point of view is wild dogs and hyena. Could imagine the possibility of disease and buildup if they had to defecate around the den site constantly, and they sort of are permanently resident in those places for a few months at a time. So it makes sense, and it's probably just an evolutionary adaptation to stop sort of build up of disease and that by making them defecate away from the den. Wild dogs are not as particular as hyenas, but they will still get up and move a little distance from the den before defecating. But hyenas are seem to be very, very strict about that. They will have a latrine site close to the den, so maybe within 50 or 60 meters, but they won't defecate right at the den where they spend a lot of time. So quite an interesting thing to try help with sort of disease build-up and stuff. And obviously in the hyena den, in hyena feces, there's quite a lot of nasties, especially the amount of carrion they eat. So there's possibility of lots of different types of intestinal worms and flukes, liver flukes and things like that. So very, very interesting that they will choose to generally defecate and urinate a little distance from the den rather than where they spend a lot of their time. doesn't seem to be getting warmer this morning. Jeandré has already reached for a blanket again. He started off being all tough, I think after my comment the other morning. No blanket on his legs. And now he has reached for the blanket, I've noticed. He seemed to have done that quite sneakily while I wasn't watching. So I'm keeping an eye out for that nearly impossible tree quiz. I'm trying to decide whether to try trick you with a young version of a tree you know, if I can't find a tree you might not know, or just a strange sort of growing pattern of a tree you might know. But don't worry, I haven't forgotten, and I'm keeping my eyes peeled around to see what tree we can find. So we've just left that Hyena latrine site, and you noticed a lot of the dung was white. And Katrina was wondering, does it come out white or does it change color over time? So Katrina, when it comes out, it's very sort of greeny, grey and smelly, and it does change color over time. And the reason it does eventually turn white is because of the very high calcium content. Ooh, sorry, I think I see a track. That is in their dung. It is a hyena tracked in soft sand, so it looked a little bit bigger, which made me think it might possibly be a lion, but not a very distinct track. But I have got a little track to show you. And I'm going to show you this track quickly. But before we do that, just in case it disappears, speaking of calcium, we're off to an animal finding calcium in a different way, and we'll be back with this track or other tracks a little later.
Well, we haven't been able to find any carnivores, but what we have found is an Impala chewing on a bone. A lot of you may be quite surprised to see this, and it is quite interesting that a lot of the herbivores will actively seek out bones to chew on in order to supplement their diet with calcium. And unlike the hyena, whose bone-crunching jaws can quite easily crush through the bones, this Impala is having a harder time getting what it wants. And the official term for this is osteophagia, so the feeding on bones. And we have shared a few different sightings of giraffe chewing on bones. I can't think of any other animals that I've actually been able to share with you, and this is quite unique to see the Impala doing it. And I think James may have on one occurrence had an Impala doing the same thing. And at this time of the year, when it is very dry, a lot of the herbivores will not be getting as much nutrients and minerals from the drying vegetation as they would like, and hence this strange behavior. You can see certainly not quite comfortable with this strange cuisine, and they look far more comfortable nibbling on leaves. But she certainly is doing her best to try and crunch off little bits of that dried up calcium. It'll be interesting to know what animal it is that that bone came from. Who knows, possibly another Impala. So even though these animals may be killed by predators, or their family or other herbivores will be killed, they too will still benefit from the remains of the carcasses. And it's just wonderful to see how Mother Nature ensures that nothing does go to waste. And even though this bone could have been lying here in the bush for quite some time now, this Impala is doing its bit for the nutrient cycle, ensuring that nothing goes to waste and everything will eventually be broken down and recycled back into the ecosystem. It also goes to show how important hyena are in the ecosystem, and you've been looking at some of their latrines with the very white dung. And they are one of the only animals who can successfully and effectively break down bone, initially by crunching through it with their incredibly powerful jaws. But on top of that, their digestive system can also further break down these shards of bone, whereas lion and leopard, who can certainly crunch through some bone, won't be able to digest it, and you will see fragments of bone in their droppings. So if it wasn't for the hyena, there would be carcasses littered all over the bushveld, and then that important link in the nutrient cycle would be lost, and there'd be a lot of waste, you could say. So even the hyena, who often get painted in a bad light for stealing kills, do provide and fill this very important niche that the Impala is helping out with this morning. Good, well, it's interesting, we can't see any other members of this individual's herd. I'm sure they're not too far away, and they do usually stay in small herds, anywhere from 4 to 6 or 7 animals in general in this area. In other parts of Africa, though, it's important to realize that dynamics can be very different. And in Zululand, which is close to my hometown, you get massive herds of Impala and large congregations of them, and that's vegetation's more suited to them. But I'm sure there are a few Impala still in this area, not too far from this individual, because it's uncommon to see them alone. Well, glad we got to share that. That's something interesting, and that's the great thing about being on safari. You always get surprised by these unique sightings. And the more time we spend out here, the luckier we get, basically. We're not too far from the Buffelshoek waterhole. I know, I think you may have been there with Brent already. But things change, and who knows what will be there now. What we've decided to do is, because we've had no luck in the immediate area of where we lost the male leopard tracks we've been following, we're going to do a much bigger loop around now, still in the same general direction, but we're going to extend the search somewhat. Okay, there's a little hornbill. Please don't fly away. Okay, perfect. Now, what it's done is, and Bryan's going to take you nice and close there, is it's flipped over a piece of buffalo dung. And what's underneath that buffalo dung are termites that have already started to break it down. So again, the nutrient cycle is so effective out here. Sadly, the termites are being prevented from doing their job. But I guess in turn, this little hornbill will be depositing the termites that it feeds all over the bush, so completing the nutrient cycle. And it may not finish all of the termites that were busy breaking down that buffalo dung. And this new little camera does come with its hardships, but the zoom really is enjoyable, and I think you may even be able to see some of the little termites on that dropping. I love watching the hornbills. They've got big beaks, but they're so accurate. And what it's doing is it's picking up each individual termite, tossing it into the air and kind of back into its mouth. Oh. Well, I'm glad I don't have to dig through buffalo dung for my breakfast, but it seems to be having a great time here. Well, I'm glad to know the animals in this area of the reserve are all having a good breakfast. The Impala chewing on some bone, this little red-billed hornbill having a protein-rich termite breakfast. And it appears like it's had enough of those for now and may go and seek out another buffalo dung to flip over. Oh, what's its next plan? There's a very large pile of dung to its right. It'll be interesting to see what he does with that. When I say he, I mean he or she. Very difficult to distinguish between male and female hornbills, or at least the red-billed and the yellow-billed. Well, I'm happy that a lot of you guys are enjoying the new extended zoom on these cameras, but I must tell you that the cameramen are having a hard time with them. So other than the zoom, the cameramen aren't too happy with what's going on, because it's quite difficult for them to get their fingers onto all the different buttons that they need to. So they are battling, but appreciate all of your kind words and are happy to hear that you are enjoying the benefits of this camera. I wonder if it's going to return to that initial little pile of buffalo dung and flip it over again in the hope that more termites may have revealed themselves. It looks like it may be. Nope. I love the way they waddle around and hop around. They're such comical little birds. Very good. Well, the Warthog is just around the corner, so we're going to leave the hornbill to carry on foraging for snacks and see what's happening at the water's edge. Well, before we do that, we've got the cousin who's just arrived, the yellow-billed hornbill, so we may as well show you right now. You'll be able to get a good idea of the difference in the two birds. The yellow-billed is slightly bigger and quite clearly has a bright yellow beak. This one's carrying along a leaf on its stomach, which is interesting to see. Very fancy decorations. And it too now, it's a flattened buffalo dung that it's busy rummaging through, but there could well be some termite action there. I guess the Hornbills know that they shouldn't attempt to flick over a buffalo dung unless it's hardened and been there some time, otherwise they could just end up with a smelly and wet beak filled of buffalo dung that has not yet been able to be processed by the termites. So that's why we don't see them flipping over every single buffalo pat that we go past. Some Egyptian geese just flew past that you may have been able to hear. I'm not sure if you can see them. The one problem with the new cameras is that it doesn't feed to a monitor, so I've got no idea of the shot that you're actually getting, which makes it a little bit tricky for us. But what's not going to be tricky is showing you three male Impala who've just arrived for a drink. So let's just get into position quickly and let Bryan do his business for you. They've just arrived, so our timing's good. They're going to be quite nervous in this windy weather. And the wind combined with the fact that they are in a high danger zone where they know they could be ambushed by a predator, they're going to be very cautious as they drink. So it's going to be interesting to watch this. You may be able to see a small black and white bird along the water's edge following them. That's an African pied wagtail, and you may notice it wagging its tail furiously every now and then. Who's going to be the bravest of the three? They're all kind of waiting, wondering, you go first. No, you go first. It would be wonderful to know exactly what they are thinking between one another. But what you can see is that they are just taking their time to make sure that there are no threats here. Yesterday afternoon, Karula was seen drinking here. Sadly, we were not in the right place at the right time, and she, from here, headed straight north into Buffelshoek, so there was no time for us to join that sighting. Surely not, guys. Surely you're not leaving without having a drink. Well, it appears that they are, so maybe they've just not feeling comfortable. The Egyptian goose that flew past earlier have disappeared. I think they were on their way to another waterhole as we arrived. So there's not too much else happening here for the time being. And isn't it interesting how these Impala have come all the way up to the water's edge, but just not felt comfortable about it. And have now changed their mind. Oh no? There could be a little bit of backwards and forwards here. So what we may do is wait here and see if they don't change their mind. And in the meantime, we can send you across to Brent, who is ready to test your skills. So he's got a little quiz prepared, and we're going to keep an eye on these Impala. If anything changes here, we'll rush you back. Enjoy.
So welcome back. We haven't quite found the nearly impossible tree yet. So I decided I'd soften you guys into it slowly. I'm quite sure a lot of you might know what this track is that's in front of me already, but we're going to throw it out there anyway, see who can figure it out. Quite a nice big track, and with this very dull light we have this morning, it's going to be quite difficult to show you any of the smaller, more intricate tracks. So if we have a look, you can see 2 feet here. We've got one toe there, another there, another there, another there, and there's the back pad here. So both of them, this is the front foot, the back foot's on top, and you can often see those 2 front toes drag in the sand when they pull. And the biggest probably giveaway, and you must remember when you're tracking, you're not only looking exactly at what you can see in the ground, you need to look around you. And there's a nice big clue up against this bush. And that's all I'm going to say. So I'm going to let you guys ponder it for a little bit. So we're going to move along, see if we can find anything else, and let you guys ponder. I'm quite sure a few of you there are going to be really quick on that, but I do have a plan. I think I finally remembered where a nearly impossible tree is, so we're going to head to that direction and see if anyone can figure out what this is behind me, and then try to figure out what's the nearly impossible tree. So a very quiet morning so far, but that doesn't mean there isn't absolutely fascinating things to look at, and it also gives us a chance to stop focusing on the big hairies and scaries and start looking at a lot of the smaller things we find out in the bush. Just gonna. Okay, Jeandré, in this little combretum or bush willow next to us here. Oh, decided to go across to the other side and might still be able to grab. What I'm gonna go forward, and then I'm gonna try get them to come a little bit closer. So for those of you working on their bird list, I'm not sure whether you have actually seen this one before. I'm sure we have seen it on the drives, but if you are new at starting a bird list, it might be a nice little add-on. Oh dear. Well, not being very, very helpful to us, and they've flown off from the termite mound to the next set of bushes and are a bit far away now, but I will keep a lookout for it. It was a little tawny flanked prunier, So we'll try find another one of those. So well done, guys. I knew you would be quite quick. On Twitter, Kathleen and Rosie were the first to get that track correct. And on email, Georgianne and Ron. So for those of you who might have just missed, we just had a look at a nice big track with a lot of defecation behind it. And it was most definitely a hippopotamus who left those tracks. So well done, guys. A lot more got it right. Those were just the fastest on the keyboards this morning. So there's that nearly impossible tree is around here somewhere. So while we look for our nearly impossible tree, those Impala who were with Scott look like they might come down for a drink. They're still a little bit jumpy, but hopefully they do, and we'll be back with you once we find the nearly impossible tree.
Well, these Impala came back to the water's edge and now appear to be checking the perimeter of the waterhole for any threats. They certainly do want to take a drink, but they've come up onto the dam wall, I guess, to make sure there's nothing spying on them from the other side. But they certainly do want to. Oh, will this be the first one? Taking a gap while his friends keep an eye on him from that vantage point of the dam wall. Imagine fearing for your life just to have a drink of water. It would be wonderful to know what they can sense. Can they smell Karula's scent from yesterday? After she spent time here, possibly that's what's alarming them. And maybe that's why they are just making extra sure that there's nothing here. Just going to move the vehicle forward ever so slightly. Wasn't good. It just disappeared down a hole. Sorry, Brian, are you okay there? I think it could be that they can smell Karula's scent from yesterday, and that's why they are on high alert. That would be the only plausible explanation that I can come up with, because it is very open where they are, so they should feel confident. And is the first one going to take a sip? Will we finally see them? No, not quite ready yet. As I was saying earlier, though, wouldn't it be absolutely wonderful not only to know how good the Impala's senses are, but to be able to spend a day in the body of all the different animals here, from the Impala to the elephant to the lion to the leopard, just to understand exactly how well they can see, smell and hear, especially for the nocturnal predators that have got good night vision. That would be something really interesting to know. But then also to be able to feel what it's like to move as quick as they can. We'll have the strength of an elephant to be able to push over trees if you desire. It's something that I always wonder about, especially in situations like this when you can see them. They're very, very intently listening, looking, smelling, making sure there's no threats. But what is it that they can smell, and what can they see and hear? Well, it looks like we could get lucky. They may come and drink right below us here. But they are just so cautious at the moment. And I have already said it once, but I must say it again, the wind will really make a lot of the herbivores much more nervous than normal. It will affect not only their smell and hearing, but also their sight. If a predator's moving through vegetation that's gently blowing in the wind, its approach won't be that easy to see. Whereas if everything's dead still, it would be easy to see something moving through the grass. The fact that they cannot hear anything creeping up on them as well, due to the ambient noise from the rustling leaves and grasses, will make them very nervous. And I guess if they're walking into the wind, they'll be confident that they can't smell any threats, but they can't permanently walk into the wind, otherwise they may not be able to get to where they want to go. Who knows, possibly there is a leopard nearby, and it's not that they can smell Karula from yesterday, but they can smell a leopard from today. That would be a pleasant surprise if we just took a closer look and there was a leopard lying under a bush. It won't be the first time that that's happened to me. But I think we're going to leave these Impala. We may be contributing to their nervousness. And see what else is going on in this area. Well, well done to all of you who got Brent's quiz correct. Really important to be able to read into the signs of all the different animals and be able to understand what exactly is going on out here, even if it is the strange defecation habits of the hippopotamus. It's one of my favorite things to watch out here, actually. Sadly, we don't get to see it very often. It also makes a pleasantly nice noise. You probably didn't hear any of that. That wasn't a very good impersonation of the noise that it makes as they disperse their dung with their short stubby tail. So the plan for the next part of the drive is to check the northern boundary, which has already been checked a few times by various vehicles today. But I'm hoping that Karula, a female leopard that was seen at this very same waterhole yesterday evening, may have come back into more familiar turf of hers, and that's here on Djuma. And it may have just been a brief visit into Buffelshoek, I'm hoping. Oh, well, there was a kudu, but it's disappeared into some bush. So we're going to send you across to Brent, and we will keep you updated on our movements as we go along.
Hello, and welcome to the nearly impossible tree quiz. So, we have found a nearly impossible tree, and it is this tree behind me. I'm pretty sure I think I've got you all stumped this time. As you can see, it is a small bush. It doesn't really get much bigger than this. It can get up to about 3 meters, and I think I'm going to have to give you some clues to help you get this. So, if we look carefully in on a branch over here, we can see there are spines. So spines are modified branches, they're not thorns. And that is probably one of the biggest clues about this bush. It is a member of the currant family, and that's about all the clues I'm going to give you. I'm going to bring a branch a bit closer that you can have a look. And another very important clue is where I'm sitting. In this area, this tree generally only grows on top of termite mounds. Well, Murphy's Law. So there we go. That is a little branch. So the spines on this are quite a dead giveaway. So not many other species in this family have these modified branches that are sharpened like thorns as a protection against animals, and very, very uncommon in this family. As I said, it's part of the currant family, but the spines or the modified branches are the clue. And then I really think I've got you guys this time. It is a very difficult tree, so hopefully there are some smarty pants out there who are going to be able to figure it out, but I think this one's going to take a little bit longer than normal, so I'm going to keep the branch with me while we continue on and see what we can find. But here we go, the nearly impossible tree quiz. Hole. Yeah. Oh, sorry, he's on that. Didn't see that bush. We go. Unfortunately, there have been no tracks and no updates since we've been on Arethusa. We're still going to continue to check, and hopefully we do find some animals that have a heartbeat, but we will continue on. But it is still awesome to be out here on a daily basis and out in the bush, and there's always something new to see and new to learn. So we have had that question about the hippo dung and hippo tracks a little earlier, and Sherry's asking, are hippos the only animals to fling their dung? Out of the large mammals and the mammals we see regularly here, they are, and it is a territorial thing. They use their tail like a little windscreen wiper. Instead of cleaning, it spreads the dung, and that is to spread the dung, and that also helps so probably with the smell to stay longer. It opens up those dung boluses and spreads the smell further. Hippos are quite strange with their territorial behavior. Far more territorial in the water, and they have sort of male hippos have grazing territories that actually they're narrower close to the water, and they spread out away from the water, and as they get further from the water, the territories obviously become less defined, but close to the water sources where those dominant bulls live, those territories are defended vigorously. So quite interesting, and a slightly different sort of territorial pattern to what most animals have. But animals with dung, so hippo is the only one who utilizes the tail that I know about to fling it, but a lot of animals will spread their dung by using their feet. And I'm going to take advantage of some buffalo dung that's here to show you what they do. So quite often they will defecate, and then to break up the dung and to spread the smell, they also often urinate on it. And also if they turn over the soil, and we watch lions do it quite often, but with urine, not with dung, and they'll do this. And it turns up the soil, and that fresh soil coming up from below the ground is said to be able to hold that smell for a bit longer. So we see quite often lion and leopard, when they're marking territory, they'll do this. Certain other species do it as well by kicking their dung around. So very interesting how different animals use different methods to ensure that their scent of their territorial markings will stay longer. Hyenas paste on grass and on bushes. Hippos spread. Lion and leopard mark on the sand. So very, very interesting how that can differ between the different species, and at the end it's with all the same goal, to try and make sure that their territorial scent marks stay for as long as possible. We've had quite a few answers in, and as I think I might have caught you guys out finally. Normally I think definitely got them, they're not going to know this tree, and you guys always seem to prove me wrong. but so far we've had quite a few answers in, none of them correct yet. We've had woolly caperbush, we've had common spike thorn, jackalberry, sour plum, and so far no one has even got the family member. As I said, I think this is a tree. I'm not sure whether we've actually ever showed you any member of the family, so it could be a little bit unfair, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit longer to try and figure it out. So we've also got a canberra tree and a mustard bush, also still not there, not even in the right family. Just remember the hint I gave you, it was a member of the current family. The current family, that is the big clue that'll start letting you look in the right direction. And remember those modified branches or spines, that is another big clue that comes to identifying this particular tree. Very chilly. I just took my gloves off and I don't think that was a good idea. And pop them back on. I think the temperature seems to have raised much since we got moving, much earlier on the safari. So we've got another answer, a Ziziphus abyssinica. Unfortunately not. As far as I know, we do not get any Ziziphus abyssinica in South Africa, maybe possibly in central Mozambique or northern Zimbabwe. I know they do come into Zambia. The only Ziziphus we get here is the buffalo thorn. So just to give you another quick look at the branch. And again, the important parts at the end here, the spines. Oops, let me move my fat gloves out the way. There we go. The modified branchlets. So apparently Steph might have showed you this bush before, but it doesn't seem like anyone can remember. So I'll give you a little bit longer before I put you out of your misery and let you know what it is. I'm not sure whether Steph has, but I could be completely wrong. But we will definitely put you out of your misery sooner rather than later. So we've got a few more answers in. Is it a form of a turkey berry? And I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Wangwa berry. It's neither of those. So I think it's time to put you out of your misery. It is a very interesting bush or small tree, and can get up to about 3 meters. And the common name for it is a thorny caree or a spiny rhys. And the Latin name is Rhys gwenzii. And it is a thorny caree or a spiny rhys is the common name. And quite an interesting tree. In this area, they only seem to grow on the top of oh, just hang on, I think someone has got it right. But I'll carry on chatting. They only seem to grow on top of termite mounds in this area, and they're used in traditional medicine for eye problems like styes and infections in the eye, and various different methods are used. That you can take peelings of the bark and on the roots, and you boil it, and then your eye is washed with that. And even in circumstances to light a dry branch and burn it and let the smoke drift into the eye is another traditional method that's used for eye infections and clearing. And it looks like Simone got it right, and she had a spiny caree, so I'm sorry, a spiny rhys. So very well done to Simone. So one person managed to get it. Need to find another tree now. A thorny caree or a spiny rhys. So I thought I had you guys, but it seems like there is one smarty pants out there. So really, really well done, Simone. I really thought I had you guys this time. So I'm going to have to work a bit harder at the nearly impossible tree quiz. So very well done. We're going to continue on. At the moment, we're parked next to a place that will be quite important to a few of us later on today. It is known as Knobthorne Open Area, and it is also our touch rugby field, which occasionally our games get interrupted by animals. And the last time we played here, we had a very confused wildebeest bull who ran in going as we ran around chasing the balls. So while we continue on and see what else we can find, we're going to back across to Scotty, and he can let you know what he's been up to for the last little while.
Welcome back, everyone. And I hear Brent's getting quite tricky with the quizzes he's presenting to you guys. And well done to him for stumping you, I guess. It's not often that the quizzes will stump our seasoned safari goers. Now, there's a interesting bird that's busy feeding at the Djuma Warthog. I've just caught a glimpse of it, and I'm just going to now get us into position to watch it doing its business. Haven't had any sign of Karula coming back into Djuma. That's not to say she hasn't. We just simply haven't seen any clear evidence of that happening. And that was the initial plan before we sent you across for that quiz. Oh, well, it wasn't what I thought it was. But there are two little birds feeding there. I initially thought the white one was a spoonbill from a distance, but it is in fact an egret, and they're quite difficult to distinguish, and I've actually forgotten which one's this. And I'm just going to take a second or two to make sure I know which one it is. Now, it's not easy to see because of the muddy vegetation it's walking through, but it's actually got yellow feet. And that's what threw me off a little bit. The little egret is in fact what we're looking at, which does have yellow feet, but they are disguised now from the mud that it's walking through. Earlier on though, we could see that it was a more yellowish tinge, and also that combined with its size points out to us that it's not in fact the yellow-billed egret, as well as its beak color, as well as the great egret. So this, I'm sure, may be a new bird to add to your lists. The little egret. And it will hunt a lot of aquatic animals, insects, small fish, frogs. And you'll see how it's using its toes to try and shovel up any potential prey. I find it fascinating how birds can hunt in such murky water. And it's testament to how well they have adapted to their specific hunting niche. Come on, make a big kill for us. It can always be a funny sight to watch a lot. Oh! That looked impressive. It looked like it could have been going for something slightly larger there. As I was saying though, it can be quite funny to watch herons and kingfishers who catch prey that's actually too big for them to swallow. And that could happen here. The drying waterhole is going to make for easier and easier hunting as the months proceed. Because I'm not sure what Bryan's filming, it's difficult to work out what's going on exactly, but now that the little egret has flown off, we can head on back to the hummerkorp, which is still feeding, also using its feet in a similar fashion to the little egret, trying to sift out any potential prey with its toes. There it goes. We had a great sighting a few months back in the summer months of a hummerkorp catching tiny little catfish at Treehouse Waterhole that some of you may remember. trying to work out what exactly it is feeding on. It could be little aquatic insects. Whatever they are, they seem very small. Good. Well, I want to continue. I was going to go and check some trees where in the past we have seen Varro's eagle owls, and because we were fortunate enough to have a Varro's eagle owl kill a guinea fowl in the tree above our campfire last night, I'm inclined to go and have a look in the same tree where we found them with the guinea fowl killed before, as there is a chance that it may have headed back into that same tree to feed. It's a very slight chance, but certainly worth a little investigation. Too far away from there, so we should be able to get there in the next couple of minutes and see what's going on in a beautiful big jackalberry tree or ebony tree. The last time we found the Varro's eagle owl there with the guinea fowl kill, I was actually investigating the tree for any sign of leopard inside it, and the owl flew out with this kill, so that was a pleasant surprise. Okay, please don't go anywhere, little bird. No, we're in luck. It's just up ahead of us on the left of the road, and with this new little camera that's got great zoom, I really would like you to take a closer look at this bird. They are really pretty. Quite bizarre colorings. Oh, and you may have got a brief glimpse of it. Yeah, and that was a white-crested helmet shrike. Oh, and there was another bird that I want to show that's also just taken off. It might still be just up ahead. I tried to show it to you the other day, but it did the same thing then. Bryan, in that little gap at 10 o'clock, there's a black bird floating about. Have you got it? In the brown, you should get it now.
I did.
Now it looks similar to a bird with a red beak called a green woodhoopoo, but it's not the green woodhoopoo. And when it turns its body, you may get a slightly better view. It's got quite a long curved bill. I think it may have popped out. Popped
on it.
It's still on it, good. Now, because we don't see this bird very often, I would like you to try and tell us what it was, and if any of you are aware of that bird, I'll be impressed, because I don't think I've managed to show you one before. So we may have a few more birds for the bird list. The only clue I'll give you is it's often on the same page as the green woodhoopoo in the bird book, but it is not a woodhoopoo. So send your answers through very quickly, and in the next minute or two I will reveal who got it right, if anyone. And the little white bird, just to clarify earlier, was the white-crested helmet shrike. I know a lot of you are working on your bird lists, and I'm sure the little egret is going to be an additive for a lot of you that we saw earlier, and possibly that little black bird that we've just seen now. Now we are approaching the tree where there is a very slight chance we may find the owls. But I'll be hugely surprised if they are there. It's more of a bit of a research gamble that I'm undertaking here to see if they do like to feed in specific trees once they have made a kill. What makes me think that it's not likely is that it's quite a heavy prey to transport around, and they'll try and find somewhere as close to where they killed it as possible. I'd just like to investigate this further by actually making sure Well done, Georgian. In Illinois, the common scimitarbull is the correct answer for that little blackbird that we've just seen. This tree on our left is where we last saw Varro's eagle owl with the guinea fowl kill. But I'm not surprised to see they are not here with their most recent one that they made last night. And I'm just going to page across to the common scimitarbull quickly on my book to show you that. Once Bryan's allowed you to make sure and double check that we haven't in fact missed the owls in the tree. Beautiful big jackalberry tree. Okay. So here we go, you can see the red-billed woodhoopoe, or green woodhoopoe as it is now known, that we do see from time to time. And then the common scimitarbull, which is what we've just seen here. So very well done, Georgian. And it's a new one to add to the list, I'm sure, for a lot of you. And lots of others, I'm told, also got it right. It's just that Georgian was quickest to pull the trigger. And you don't have long out here, you've got to be snappy if you want to get your name called out for the correct answers on the quiz, so you've got to sharpen your tools. Anyway, thanks very much for joining us on this safari. It's been cold and windy, and hopefully this afternoon will be a little bit different to that, but it's always fun being out here with you. And thanks to Bryan on camera, as well as Nikki, who directed the show, and Tara, who was lending her hand. And we will see you all on the Sunset Safari.
Welcome back, everyone, and we are sitting with the flock of guinea fowl that probably had one of their group taken by that Varro's eagle owl last night. I know Scott was trying to look for the remnants of that kill. So this group of guinea fowl are one short this morning. But what an amazing sunrise safari it's been. We were very lucky to start off. Oh, look at that. Sorry. Quickly, before we disappear, I'm going to start saying my goodbyes, but there's a nice big group of giraffe making their way towards us. So I'm going to say a quick goodbye and leave you with the long-legged giraffe as they move across the quarantine clearings. So thanks very much for joining us. We really do appreciate all your questions. And there we go, off to the giraffe. I'm going to keep talking while we look at the giraffe. I'm far sure you would rather see the giraffe than me. So thanks very much for joining us again. It's been wonderful having you. We had an incredible elephant sighting with Mr. Wrinkley Bottom and the rest of that wonderful big breeding herd as they went down to drink. Thanks again for all the questions. If there are any new viewers, please keep sending questions. We really appreciate them. And there's no such thing as a dumb or silly question, only dumb and silly answers. So I'm going to keep quiet and let you enjoy the majestic movement of the giraffe. There are 5 or 6 giraffe that I can see. So enjoy the giraffe, and we'll see you for the Sunset Safari.